I found quilt pattern design, I was like, wow, quilting, creativity, engineering brain, maths, geometry, everything kind of aligns.
There's a lot of engineering that goes into a quilt pattern. When you had mentioned that you were an engineer, I said, okay, this person speaks my language. There's something about making a constructible drawing and handing it over to someone to create a real thing in the world.
Welcome to A Creative Odyssey. I'm Ryde. I'm a designer, an entrepreneur, and online educator obsessed with all things design, quilting, and creative business. Whether you're a seasoned quilter or you're just starting out, whether you're passionate about design and textiles, or whether you're a creative business geek who loves to nerd out on all the moving parts that go into making a creative business thrive, you are in the right place. I'm excited to share insights from my creative odyssey with you as I navigate design, creativity, and growing an online business on this journey as a creative entrepreneur. Are you ready to explore the possibilities of design and discover the world of creative business? It's time to embark on a creative odyssey. Welcome to this special alumni edition of A Creative Odyssey. Today I have the absolute privilege to have Andrea from the Domesticated Engineer with me here. Andrea is an alumni of Quilt Design Code. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, Andrea, because you started out in a different place than quilting altogether. So tell me a little bit about where you were before you started Quilt Design Code, what the business was you were running, and we'll go from there.
So I have had a sewn goods company for many years. I started as a eco-friendly sewn goods company that specializes in making reusable alternatives to disposables. But I was looking for a way to change my business to be a little less hands-on. For years, I've been the one who makes my products. And I've had a hard time finding sewists that will make the products for me. I've sold online, I've sold at shows, and it just became a very all-consuming process. So in 2023, I decided that I was going to invest in some courses to build my skills to create things that were a digital product. So I started with surface pattern design, and I ultimately found quilt pattern design, which I feel like has translated a lot better to what my experience was. I come from an engineering background, and I'm not the most artistic person. So I spent like all summer trying to draw a flower and really being just like upset about my work. And then I discovered that creating quilt patterns helped me use geometry. It helped me open up Excel. It showed me Illustrator in a way that related more to like AutoCAD. So I got the best of what I left behind in engineering, but also allowed myself to be creative. So I really loved Quilt Design Code. It really kind of unlocked something that I hadn't been using for a long time, because as a sewist and as a production sewist, I was doing a lot of the making, but I had done initial designs and then I just ran with those designs. So I felt like I was on an assembly line instead of using my brain. So,
yeah, totally relate to that. When I found the quilt pattern design, I was like, wow, quilting, creativity, engineering brain, maths, geometry, everything kind of aligns. So it's so wonderful to hear that there's other engineers out there who have the same experience as well. Just take me back a little bit to your business before. So you were talking about, you were the one who was making everything. You were the one who was taking everything around to markets. Obviously this is a huge trading time for money scenario, right? So it was you making all the stuff. So all of your day taken up by making stuff. Then on the weekends, going to markets, I presume. And I know that you have a young family as well. So talk to me a little bit about what it was like in the trenches of your sewn goods business before you made that transition to the digital space.
So in the early days, before I became a mom, it was a business model that I loved. I could stay at home and sew all day and kind of make meals if I needed. Like we had a very low key life. And then on the weekend, we could go to a farmer's market. We could sample like artisan cheese and hang out with other vendors and just enjoy the weekend. So we enjoy, like my husband and I enjoyed that business model before we had kids. After that, it ended up being really stressful because like I would go and he would be taking care of the kid, or he would go and I would be handling like parenting. And it just was like, I'd rather be home. And like babies aren't really good around sewing pins and like sewing machines. And having everything laid out on my dining room table wasn't really like the best situation. And so I had gotten a studio thinking that that would help. But then I didn't think, okay, well, I also have to bring my kid to the studio and juggle that around. So no matter what I did, the previous business model really just wasn't fitting my current life. And so, I had tried to work harder. I had tried to work smarter. I had tried to, like, I was trying all the things, and I felt really bad as a business owner that my business model was failing. And I think that if you step back, and that's hard to do like in the early mothering stages, and you kind of give yourself grace, you can say, okay, this business model served me for a time in my life that I enjoyed it. But now it is time to move on to a business model that will serve me later. And I think we get very tied to our business if we're a solopreneur. It's like our identity, and we don't want it to fail. But like we as people change too. So it's okay to change your business if it's not suiting you. So I took a deep dive on like the people that had helped build my business. So I had taken Bonnie and Christine's course because all of the best-selling prints that I had were her designs. So I was constantly cutting her name off of the selvages of my products. And I learned a whole lot about Illustrator, and I learned a whole lot about being more creative and going back into designing with technology instead of just trying to work harder with making more sewn goods. But
I love that. It's like stepping away from that work harder mentality and stepping into the work smarter mentality, and thinking about what that, exactly like you said, what fits my lifestyle now. You're at home, you've got young kids, maybe you're a caregiver for somebody else. What can I create? What is going to help me stay connected to my creativity? What's going to help me stay connected and, connected mentally as well, intellectually stimulated? How can I find something that fits that? So you mentioned that you kind of went into this service pattern design world, and then you found quilt pattern design. How did you, and you joined me in Quilt Design Code, which was fantastic, and came up with a phenomenal quilt design, which was awesome. Tell me a little bit about coming into Quilt Design Code with maybe no quilt pattern design experience, some obviously sewing experience, but not necessarily quilting experience. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
So the reason why I signed up for Quilt Design Code was because I wanted your unique perspective. And I think that there's a lot of design courses out there that are led by artists and designers and makers, but there's a lot of engineering that goes into a quilt pattern. And when you had mentioned that you were an engineer, I said, okay, this person speaks my language, because I came from a background, and so you worked in like oil and gas, oil rigs. I worked in nuclear.
Right. Yep.
And I did a lot of pipe supports. And there's something about like geometry, and there's something about like making a constructible drawing and handing it over to someone to create a real thing in the world. And so I I didn't see that with like surface pattern design because it is like a thing that goes on the thing, but it's not really a constructible piece of it's not a constructability drawing. And I've really loved the pattern aspect of like the instructions of creating quilt patterns. So I said, I want to go into a design work where someone comes out with a finished product and that they made it. And I know from buying my own patterns, like buying garment patterns and buying a couple quilt patterns, that I felt a lot of accomplishment when I finished those steps. So I knew what the impact was of creating something that helps someone brings a piece into the world. So that was a big thing for me coming into quilt pattern design without a lot of quilting experience, but with sewing experience.
Absolutely. Seeing that kind of tangible outcome of an idea that you've had and then holding it in your hands when you make it, it's just incredible. And as a sewist and as a quilter, we have those experiences. And really, I've actually talked to Bonnie about this as well. Kind of what we're doing, it's really legacy work, right? Somebody's going to get your quilt pattern. They're going to make a baby quilt for somebody that becomes an heirloom in their family. Just think about the connection that you can create with somebody by bringing your design idea to life and then seeing that result in the real world as a physical product. I think that's an incredibly special process to be part of, really.
Yeah, you talk about because we talk about how like this isn't like a big problem that we're solving, and you've mentioned before where it's like, but there's a pattern inside you, and someone's looking for a pattern. They're scrolling all throughout the internet, on Pinterest, everywhere, trying to look for the pattern that is there, the pattern they want to make for like this project, this person. And if you never create that pattern, that person never finds it. So it is a big problem because I have been on that search before and felt like, oh, I can't find it, or, oh, I found it. So,
yeah, that amazing moment where you're like, wow, somebody made this amazing thing. I absolutely have to make this, right? What if that person never made it and you never found that thing and you never were able to make it? And I'm sure people have had that experience with your sewn goods products as well, and they're going to have that experience with your quilt patterns as well. It's an incredibly special moment to be a part of, and it's a real privilege to be a part of that as well. So it's really exciting to hear that you also feel that way about it too. I'd love to know a little bit about, okay, so you were working in the sewn goods business and then you decided to stop trading kind of time for money and moved into the kind of digital goods space, so creating a digital quilt pattern, which is what you did in Quilt Design Code. What impact has, taking Quilt Design Code had on this new direction that your business is taking? Tell me a little bit about where the Domesticated Engineer is heading now and what kind of has come out of your experience in Quilt Design Code as a result of that program?
Well, I wouldn't be doing it without Quilt Design Code because I really needed to have someone walk me through the process. And it was the weekly one-on-one calls that really helped like move or not one-on-one, but the weekly group calls that really helped move the needle for me because I knew every week Allie was gonna ask, what are your questions? and we would go through it. And it was like this cohort that was all moving together to accomplish the goal at the same time. And it felt like we were all back in school. And did you do your homework? Did you get through the modules? Did you make it through? And I remember there was a few weeks where I was staying up late trying to make sure I was prepared for the call. And it just felt like I've taken courses before that, I didn't feel that invested in, but like, I think the teacher makes a difference where it really came out that you genuinely wanted to get everyone to the finish line. So that was a huge thing for me, and taking it forward, like, with Creative Business Builder, it's been this like consistent forward progress because every couple weeks, Allie's gonna ask like, what have you done? Like, do you have any questions? What's what did you learn, and what are you looking back that you could have improved? And it is that constant reflection of how could I have improved, like, what I did, and what am I looking forward to? So yeah, I don't know why QDC became like something that changed my business so dramatically, because you think about it, it's just like a quilt pattern design course, but the perspective that I gained from it was really like a huge mindset shift. So thank you.
Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And I promise I don't set homework as per se. I'm not going to check your homework to Quilt Design Code. But it's great to hear that those live calls, we hold live calls every week throughout the course, and it really is. It's about growing a community, and it's about connecting with other people who are makers, who are creatives like you. I know I certainly, when I was learning how to quilt and learning how to design quilts, I didn't have any kind of group like that. And all of the cohorts that come through Quilt Design Code, they're small groups. We meet live, we talk. You know, it's. I'm so glad to hear that for you it really was more than just quilt pattern design. It's a lot more than that goes into the course, and I hope that people get a lot more out of it than just quilt pattern design as well. There's a lot more that goes into it, if you like. It's really about growing as a person and as a creative person as well. So that's awesome. Tell me about what's. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Ahead.
You get a good
ahead.
mix of students, because in my class there were a lot of experienced quilters, and then there were people who were familiar with the program, but they didn't have a lot of sewing experience. But when you have like a diverse group of students, it really helps like expand your viewpoint on like what is design, and what are things that are achievable with quilt pattern design. Like what skills are you trying to teach with that pattern? What skills are the important things to teach with a pattern? And how does that pattern add value to your potential customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There are some great people who come through Quilt Design Code. It's a real privilege to be able to work with some amazing people from all over the world as well. It's really a great melting pot of all kinds of people with all kinds of interests. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing now in your business. Where is the Domesticated Engineer at the moment? What's coming up for you? What's on the horizon?
So I am a few weeks away from launching my first pattern. It is in testing right now. So as soon as the pattern tester kind of green lights it, then I'm going to go full force with my launch, because I don't really have a set date right now. I just know it's going to be in a couple weeks. And that pattern is geared towards a sewist that wants to make their first quilt. It would be beginner friendly for someone who has never made quilts, or who has never sewn before, but I really wanted to create a quilt that I felt was fulfilling enough for someone who has sewing experience, but might not want to get into like free motion quilting. It would lend itself really well for like straight stitch quilting, and it is in like bite-sized pieces, so it's not something that should take a huge time investment or a lot of tools. And I'm also pairing that with a small groups workshop series. So I'll take 10 people from start to finish. And the goal is that everyone who moves through that series will have a completed quilt within 30 days.
Amazing. That is such a cool way to launch your quilt pattern and get it out into the world, and really, really help to mentor and nurture people through the quilt making process and make sure that they can achieve that pattern that you've created, that they come out the other side with a finished product. Like we talked about, holding that finished product in your hand, that tangible outcome, it's an incredible feeling. It's so, so special. How can people find out more about your quilt pattern release, and this incredible small group of people that you're hoping to curate to bring them through this quilt pattern process as well?
So my Instagram is the best place to find me. It's at the Domesticated Engineer. And right in my bio is the link to the quilt pattern small group waitlist. And if you get on that, you'll also be given the opportunity to purchase the pattern when it releases. So everyone
Awesome.
who is in that wait list will have all the information about the pattern and the small group. Other than that, I do have a website, domesticatedengineer.com. And I think by the time this airs, it'll be more geared towards quilt patterns instead of the product-based business. But if you get on soon, then you'll see the changes as they come.
Exciting times for the Domesticated Engineer. I love this. I will keep links below in the show notes as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, that'll be down in the description so you can check out all of Andrea's amazing work. Thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast. Just as a final word, I would love it if you have, what would your advice be for somebody who is maybe thinking about taking Quilt Design Code, they're thinking about starting down this path of becoming a quilt pattern designer? Do you have any advice for them? How do they make a decision like this? What would you say to someone like that?
I would definitely tell them that they should take it, and that the skills, even if you don't ever make a quilt pattern, are very transferable. The Illustrator and InDesign that you learn will take you further in any business decision that you want to do. So with InDesign, I use my skills from QDC to make a product catalog, to make my printables. And in Illustrator, I designed my banner for my farmer's market tent, and I've designed just different product packaging and stuff. So you're not going to be wasting your time by learning these skills. And if you have a spark lit in you to become a quilt pattern designer, then you're going to use that and more. So I would say that it's a great investment of your time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us here, and we will link to all of Andrea's amazing things down below this, as I mentioned in the show notes or in the description below this video. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Look forward to seeing you soon.